Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remus.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a beautiful summer afternoon in Winnipeg for another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Taking the show on the road today. This is going to be so much fun. Our great friends at Princess Auto are hosting us down at headquarters today. We're going to be talking a little curling before we get into some hockey and, of course, Labor Day Classic talk. Jeff Hamilton and Brandon Rewucki a little later on in the program. But coming up over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to be welcoming in some legendary curlers. No one with a greater resume than, of course, Jennifer Jones. And Jennifer Jones has teamed up with MacKenzie, Zacharias, and her team for the new Team Jennifer Jones. They, along with the new look Reid Carruthers team, proudly sponsored by Princess Auto, they were here doing a bunch of things to kick off the season. So we figured what better opportunity to come down and hang out at this great HQ at Princess Auto, see some great friends, and bring the gang on from both teams over the course of the next little bit. So we'll have Reid and Jason Gunnlaugsson join us first, and then MacKenzie, Zacharias, and Jennifer Jones, and find out a little bit more about the new look teams that they've put together in the upcoming season and everything ahead. Now, it is not curling weather outside, to say the least. We've got a little bit of extra blast of summer. Hot right now. And unfortunately, of all the days for the Gold Eyes not to be playing this week, today is it, although maybe pushing 30, 40 degrees, maybe it's a good day to find some air conditioning and hang out. But we, of course, will be all over the Bombers. Jeff Hamilton is at practice right now. He'll be jumping on in the second hour of the program with a full recap of what happened today on the field for the Blue Bombers. We'll kind of get a bit of an idea about how Brandon Alexander's looking and talk a little bit more about the games in the entire Canadian Football League with, of course, the three big rivalry games, starting off with the Labor Day Classic and then the Battle of Alberta and Hamilton and Toronto going at it on Monday for the annual Canada Day, or the annual CFL Labor Day weekend. So as I said, we're going to talk to Reid and Gunner coming up, Jennifer and MacKenzie, but there is a number of stories I wanted to get to right off the bat. But before that, I do want to thank all the great sponsors that help power Winnipeg Sports Talk each and every day. Of course, our friends at Princess Auto, Coolbets Canada as well, along with the Assiniboia Downs, the Nick and Nikki DQ Group, Little Brown Jug, Not Auto Corp, Breezy Bend, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Culligan Water, Aikens Lake, Wilderness Lodge, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, and Vita Health Fresh Market. Couple things I wanted to get to right away, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with Brandon Rewucki. But regular listeners know there's been a lot of, I would say angst, some impatience, people asking questions, assuming that the Jets were going to make at least one move on the blue line. I think we're maybe finding out the reason why that has been tougher to make happen and why it hasn't happened yet. Dmitry Kulikov yesterday traded from the Minnesota Wild to the Anaheim Ducks for nothing, for future considerations. It's one of a number of future considerations deals we've had this year, essentially moving money. And I think it's pretty clear right now that the Jets have not been able to make a deal that seemingly is in their best interest. I think they feel like the asset right now is better than doing it for nothing. So I'll be interested to get Brandon's thoughts on that right now. But I really do think that that's a bit of a sign of where the market is right now. And, moving money, especially outside of top players, really, really difficult right now. And, it's going to make it that much more interesting to see how the Jets handle this situation with the glut of defensemen and a couple talented young players that seem to be ready to play, that if you could have in your lineup would afford you the ability, if one of those other contracts was not on the books, maybe to add a little bit to the forward group. But lots of intrigue about how things shake out in the next couple weeks, heading into the first week of training camp. Which, believe it or not, it is September. Happy September, everybody, is just literally a matter of days away. So we'll get to that coming up with Rewucki a little bit later on. Obviously, the latest on the Bombers practice, what's going on the Saskatchewan side of things, as well as the rest of the CFL. Big news today, staying in football, though. Well, you Bronco fans will be happy. You got your guy in the trade, Russell Wilson. Well, now he's inked a $245 million deal before he even plays a snap as the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. But Russ deserves it. He's got a pretty darn good resume, Super Bowl winning quarterback. And the AFC West is going to be must-see TV this year. What can I say? I mean, I joked with some of my buddies, the NFL always knows how to grind out more money. They should have maybe done a pay-per-view package to watch the AFC West games this year, with Devontae Adams going to the Raiders, Russell Wilson going to the Broncos, the Chargers already having an absolutely stacked team with stud quarterback Justin Herbert, and of course, the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So Russell Wilson will be the man in Denver for probably the rest of his career right now, but certainly the next 5 seasons, as he has a new deal to quarterback the Denver Broncos. And one other thing, I'm not sure, we were maybe going to get John Horn on at some point before the end of the week. Wasn't a great day for the Canadians yesterday. I mean, Denis Shapovalov did win his first match before. Felix Auger-Aliassime, though, 6th seed. He went out quickly yesterday with a straight set loss to Draper. A very disappointing run for Felix, who seems to be on the verge of breaking through. And there was some good and some unfortunate bad for the Canadians on the women's side of things. Big win for Rebecca Marino. She's on into the 3rd round. Bianca Andreescu wins as well. She was an underdog in that match yesterday. She is on to the 3rd round. But unfortunately, Leila Annie Fernandez, who was seeded 14th in the tournament, bowed out in straight sets last night. Real tough tiebreaker in number 2. So Leila and Felix out of the tournament. Rebecca Marino and Bianca Andreescu. But of course, the biggest story last night was the legend. We're going to be talking to a legend coming up a little bit, but much like what Jennifer Jones has done in curling, there is one and one only GOAT when it comes to tennis, and that is Serena Williams. Serena last night taking out the 2nd seed in the tournament and moving on. And this tournament, until Serena's not in it anymore, is going to be all about Serena Williams playing in her final tournament. And considering, I was talking about this last night with some friends, if she was able to go on, and don't count her out for anything, she was able to go on a run and win this tournament, it would almost be like Tiger Woods winning the 2019 Masters and shutting it down. Oh, by the way, and calling their shot beforehand, saying this is the final tournament. So I know the U.S. Open folks and the folks at TSN are going to be loving this, because there'll be an incredible amount of eyeballs on this tournament the longer that Serena is, even without Novak Djokovic playing in the event this year. So a lot to get to. But I'm really looking forward to bringing on Reid Carruthers and Jason Gunnlaugsson in just a minute. The boys can jump on with us, and we'll get a little talk about, we'll get into their new look team and the upcoming season as well. And listen, while we get the guys in here, we'll get Gunnar and Reid to set up shop, throw the cans on. Want to give a big shout out to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. You know, Vita Health, it's the spot for the best selection of organic and natural groceries, supplements, and more. And not to mention an amazing selection at their grab-and-go deli of Vita Market salads, sandwiches, and more to keep you healthy, eating, full, and on the track on those busy days. 7 Winnipeg locations now, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. And you can also find out more on everything Vita Health has available for you online at their fully shoppable website at myvita.ca. Of course, the gang at Wallace & Wallace has been busy all summer long. You know them as the fencing experts in Winnipeg. If you see a fence, it's probably Wallace & Wallace. But you might not know, they're also the leader in garage doors, working with Clopay, the world's largest garage door manufacturer. And despite supply chain issues, you can still get a beautiful brand new garage door here, delivered and installed in less than 4 weeks, as things get crazy coming on the other side of the Labor Day weekend. And hey, you might not know that a new garage door can add up to 4% to the value of your home. Find out more on everything that Wallace & Wallace can do for you at wallacedoors.com. Give them a call or pop down and see them at their showroom over on Lawson Road. And I told you guys yesterday, I picked up the new suit from F Apparel. I'm ready to go for the wedding on the weekend. We will do a suit show when Michael Remus comes back, and I won't even tease what the special feature of this suit. All I'll tell you is, guys, if you need to step up your wardrobe game heading into fall and the winter, F Apparel's the spot to do it. Custom suits beginning at $400. And the entire process was really fun. Got a chance to choose the materials, colors, all of that. And staff there, absolutely amazing for the fitting when I went out. F Apparel, they're at 190 Smith Street downtown. Or make an appointment at F. That's EPHapparel.com. And hey, a big shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. I know they got a couple more weeks of the fishing season there. If you're thinking about an incredible world-class fly-in fishing getaway where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. And as great as the fishing is, the hospitality and the people are even better. Pitt Terren, the wonderful Terren family, taking great care of us. Cannot wait to get back there next season. All right. As I mentioned, we will talk Jets and Bombers a little later on. Hamilton joining us from practice. Brandon Rewucki, going to want to get his thoughts on what we can find from the market of the fact that Dmitry Kulikov traded for absolutely nothing yesterday to the Anaheim Ducks. But right now, to kick off fall, I guess officially now that September, it's curling season already. And look who's here. Our guys with the new look Team Carruthers. It's our old friend Reid and Gunner himself, Jason Gunnlaugsson. Fellas, what's going on? You look good in the new duds.
Thanks, buddy. New treads. Just got them yesterday. We back.
Definitely. Gunner, what's going on?
No, not much. Just excited to get some curling going here.
I got to tell you, I was so fired up when, and we'll get to the insanity of the free agent frenzy of curling this year in a minute. But when the dust settled, and to hear that both of you guys, we weren't sure where you were ending up. I mean, both of you guys have been on my programs for many, many years. Two of my favorite dudes. The fact that you guys were playing together, I was personally excited quite a bit. I mean, Reid, well, first off, I'll start with you. Tell us about how this all came to be and the new look Team Carruthers, of course, sporting your beautiful new Princess Auto Auto unis. You guys, you guys look good.
Dapper,
catalog worthy.
Almost pH quality. Yeah.
That's right. I'm not sure whether you can get one of these at F. Maybe on the inside of your suit.
Hey, we could probably work on that. I know a guy that owns this company. So. Yeah. No, honestly, it's Jason and I have we've joked for years. We curled our first 3 years of men's together, did quite well. But yeah, many moons,
catalog worthy.
Almost many moons later, we're back at it. But I just think we had joked just at some point, we might be back doing this together, and just with having the trials go last year and both of our teams not having the success that we wanted, both showing glimmers of brilliance, but then also, disappointment. It was time for, I think, all of us to try something new again. And I would almost say this is almost like the last hurrah for me, whether I'm doing 4 years or 8 years, but this will be like the last go. And it's pretty fitting that's with Jason, because that's essentially where I started it out.
Well, you know what, Gunner, I mean, Jason Gunnlaugsson here now, proud member of Team Reid Carruthers. You guys do go way back. How far back do you guys go? I mean, what's your first memory of Reid? And I imagine it was on a curling rink somewhere running around here in the city.
I'd say we were 14, 15 when we really started doing battle in the junior ranks, and then playing together and having a lot of success, right when we started in men's. And yeah, it's kind of fun, like Reid says. I mean, we only have so many more seasons, and to kind of, wrap things up on the other end with someone, that you've battled with, but also against for so long. It's really fun.
So, Reid, how did it come together? I mean, and take us behind the scenes of the free agent craziness of curling. I mean, it seemed like anyone that follows it was hearing bits and pieces. Oh, this team's not going to be together next year. Don't expect these guys to be together. And then, a few teams would pop out earlier on. I mean, some took longer than others. I mean, obviously you and Mike had some great success together for a long time. I mean, at what point did you know that was going a different direction? And how did you manage to tap your old pal to make this team?
Yeah, I would say the tipping point for all the teams is really the trials. So at that point in time when when the trials go well for you or they don't go well for you, I think conversations start to happen. There's obviously a reflection period. But, come January on, I think a lot of guys were already starting to talk in girls teams because there was a lot of mixing it up on the women's side as well. But, it's really interesting because in our sport, we don't have a manager. We do have a coach. But in that process itself, like my coach, Rob, actually wasn't involved in any of the decision making for who I'd be curling with moving forward. But there was guys that I'd thought about curling with, and just it seemed like we were on the same page from the get-go for what we wanted to do, and it made it pretty easy. I think there was a lot of other teams and players, I guess, that were scrambling trying to make things happen. But I think deep down we probably knew that if our previous teams were parting, we'd be giving each other a call.
So Gunnar, from your side of things, I mean, how did it come together? You get a call from Reid going, "Hey, what's going on next year? What are you doing?" And listen, how excited are you to be back playing with a guy like Reid, representing Manitoba with a pretty bright future and lots of great curling still ahead of you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think I finally bugged him enough that he gave me a call, and I wasn't gonna say no to that. So no, it was good, and the team we got, not just Reid and I, but also with Derek and Connor, being local and such dedicated and hard workers. It was just like a really great fit of people for me at this stage, and so I was super excited about that, and I really am excited, to be playing with all people from Manitoba and really just seeing what we can do.
Yeah, you mentioned Derek and Connor. Give us, I mean, because this is sort of a launch of the new team, obviously, Princess Auto Squad. Fill us in on the other guys as well, because obviously we've got the two of you guys here and the background of them.
And honestly, it's almost like a molding of two teams, because Derek, like I've curled with Derek. This will be, I think, going on my 12th year curling with the guy, and with him, it was a no-brainer once Mike and I itself were parting ways that I was going to try to keep curling with Derek, and it was just a matter of finding two other guys. And Jason and Connor both were two guys that I wanted to curl with, so it was really relatively easy from that point of view. And with Connor's a little bit younger than both of us. He's been curling with Jay. This is what year for you guys now? 8?
Yeah, 6, 7 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So it's yeah, poor guy. Some days it's one of those things where we both kind of had like that glue person on our team, and I think for me and to keep me excited about curling, Derek's my guy, and I can see why Connor would be your guy, right? Like you guys have a ton of fun on tour. Jason's got that notorious laugh. So it's like, I know that Connor's been doing a good job because Jason's always been laughing. So,
Manitoba curling is such a competitive meat grinder. I mean, when you get to the level that you guys are playing, I mean, you could argue that, just coming out of Manitoba is as difficult as, maybe any other event that you'll play outside of maybe the most elite events on the curling tour. To pull two of the top teams together and combine one, that must be incredibly exciting about the potential that you can do not only in this province, Gunner, but on a much bigger stage, both Briar-wise and nationally.
Yeah, I mean, like the Manitoba women have been just killing it the last few years. So I think Reid and I both had some conversations about that. It's like getting there on the men's side where, obviously Reid being a Briar champ understands how to do it, but like we're kind of looking to that guidance and trying to build a team that competes and then hopefully, in short order is winning the Briar, not just winning Manitoba.
4 years seems to be, I mean, it's all about 4 years right now with curling. And part of the reason why we had so much, craziness amongst the teams was that we're looking ahead to another Olympic quadrennial. I mean, when you guys put together a team, is that essentially you're looking at these next 4 years and scoring out a plan to, basically be at your absolute best at that point and be able to do what Jen did, bring a gold medal back here to the province?
Oh, and even just like winning the trials twice is unbelievable. That's, to me, that's like the toughest event in the world. The Olympics means the most and obviously has the most amount of pressure, but toughest event, playing against the best Canadian teams and winning that event alone is just crazy. And she's done it twice. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
Gunnar, you have such an interesting background. The first time I met you, you were playing poker. Then you went to Russia for a while. Then you've come back. I mean, you had. Well, Reid, maybe I'll ask you. Does he have the most colorful background in curling? He's got to be right up there.
Oh yeah, no, it's up there. He's all over the place, but it's super cool. He's got lots of really good stories.
Well, but as a teammate and as an opponent, I mean, what is it about Gunnar outside of his personality and a guy you want to hang out with that made him a perfect partner and teammate for you going ahead for the next 4 years?
Like honestly, like I'm not getting any younger, but I still got a lot of years in me. But one thing about Jay is like he's so charismatic. He's got so much energy. He's someone who's the same age as me, but he has the maturity, the hard work ethic, but he's also just a ton of fun. So I think it's a good fit for all of us. I think we're going to have probably the most fun on tour.
Well, and again, Gunnar, you've always been a fun guy. I mean, how important was that with, listen, you want to be playing with elite curlers because you're there to win and to achieve your goals. But I mean, it is a social game and you spend a lot of time with these guys. You've probably learned a lot over the years, the good and the bad. I mean, how important was the personalities of the players that you were playing with putting together for this when you're, embarking on a journey that will be 4 years and hopefully longer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important. And for me, it was great because all three of the teammates I'm playing with, I've played with before. So like I have some knowledge of what to expect. But I think, especially for Derek, Reid, and I mean, we're all very different at 21 than we are at 37, 38, whatever we are, right? So so it's a different, but you never change that much. So it's really cool to kind of know some of that going in. And it makes it easier to be like excited about doing this and not having the unknowns that some of these teams playing with people who they've never played with or never even been in the same province of. Like that's a lot of unknown for something you're committing so much time to.
Reid Carruthers and Jason Gunnlaugsson are with us here at Princess Auto, kind of launching the new team today. You guys have been quite busy. I mean, a full, some photo shoots, interviews. Listen, it's pretty great. I mean, obviously, we've got a great relationship with the Princess Auto crew, and they've supported you for a long time. This sort of support is what, top-level teams absolutely have to have.
Yeah, honestly, I think we both would retire if we didn't have that support. Like that's how important it is, and I think you see that with a lot of teams that, probably have the same work ethic as we do for putting into the game, but don't get the support and just can't do it, and also don't work that hard to get it either. It's just, curling isn't just about what it is on the ice, and I think the one thing that our team does a really good job of is, giving back to this sport, and that's one thing that the Tallman family has done throughout existence of this company is giving back to the community and now, across Canada. So for us, it's a really good fit. We're excited. I've never thrown so many rocks in July as I have with Jason, but we're rearing to get going, and thanks all to Princess Auto.
Well, you know what, let me ask you about that, because you guys, when did you guys officially kind of say, okay, yeah, it's on, we're together as a team? And listen, from talking to some of the other players, I mean, the scarcity of ice in the summer in Canada, even though as a curling hotbed, surprises a lot of people from outside Canada. I mean, fill us in on how the summer's gone, when you guys kind of decided to go ahead, and how much work you've been able to do getting ready for this moment.
Oh, it's been awesome because for most of the summer, the only place in Canada with ice is actually Morris, Manitoba. So we were, we took some time off, get a little rest in, but personally, I was just so excited to get this thing going with this group that I got, a little carried away. And in June, we started, just dabbling on the ice a little bit and building up to now where we've been, putting in some great team practices with the whole group and Coach Rob and really just trying to be ready to play this season. Because like you say, even though the goal's a long way down the line, 4 years down the line, why not be good tomorrow?
You know what, to be honest, if I didn't know better, I would have thought that maybe you've just spent the last 4 months just doing curls. Look at this shirt is really getting tested right now. I mean, you're in prime curling shape right now. You could be sweeping every rock if you wanted.
I got a new role and I got work to do. So,
Reid, that has been a wild summer, though. I mean, just from a curling fan, someone that's involved in the game. I mean, How would you describe the incredible upheaval amongst so many of the best teams in the world, all with completely new looks going into this season?
Well, I'd say that there's not going to be many curling fans that could actually name, the top 10 men's and women's Canadian teams and actually get all the positions and players correct. Like it's actually crazy. I think there's only one or two teams out of like even the top 16 that actually stuck together on both genders. So it's unbelievable. We need some TV time to actually start sorting that out. And who knows, we might even see some changes after the first few events. You never know. There's some interesting combinations out there.
It really is. What about you? I mean, you've been involved in this game for a long time. I mean, not only were you worrying about your own business and how things are going to look for you going forward, but I mean, when you look around at the landscape of both the men's and the women's games, I mean, to Reid's point, I mean, teams are almost unrecognizable. You know many of the faces, but certainly not used to seeing how things are going. And that's going to make for an incredibly interesting season this year, I'd imagine, on tour.
I think the fans are going to have a heck of a fun time, because I think you do have like all new teams to see how they do. No one really knows how it's going to go. Like by the end of a quad, you kind of got a pecking order going there pretty clearly. But this, I think, is all new, all exciting, and you've got, like Reid mentioned, a couple teams where you're going to probably have some interesting situations on the ice. So it's going to be a great curling season for the fans.
All right, with Winnipeg Sports Talk, we're live down at the Princess Auto HQ as one of the new Princess Auto teams for the World Curling Tour and more this year. Reid Carruthers and Jason Gunnlaugsson. So Reid, fill us in on what's next for you guys. When do you play first? You said you have had the opportunity to throw some rocks. I mean, What are the next few months looking like for the fellas?
Yeah, busy. Like I think we have 9 or 10 or so before Christmas. So we're starting next week. We got 3 in a row right out of the gates. I think our first TV event specific to TV will be on TSN. It's the PointsBet Invitational out in Fredericton. So that's 3 weeks from now. But we're going to be busy. So as of next Thursday, we're on the road. And I showed the calendar to the wife. I got some eyebrows raised, but she's, we're ready to go.
Well, and by the way, I guess congratulations in order as well. The Team Carruthers, the home team, got a little bit bigger recently.
We don't have a fifth, so I was thinking ahead. Always thinking ahead.
Oh, that's great. Gunnar, what about you? I mean, off the ice, how's the summer been, and how much does things change for you personally once you're now on the ice throwing with these guys and traveling around the country and the world?
Yeah, life's good. I mean, I'm fortunate that, my job, I have some great people around me that really support me. So, being able to go do what we love to do is a cool experience. But yeah, the summer's been great, and I'm just very, very excited to get this thing going.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I'm super happy for you. As I mentioned, just knowing that the two of you guys are playing together, you'll be getting plenty of calls to jump on with us. And listen, you guys have always been incredibly gracious with your time. And, we're obviously incredibly fortunate for the support we've had since we started Winnipeg Sports Talk last year from Princess Auto. And knowing that you guys were under the same umbrella, it was a great way to start this next 4 years.
Thanks so much for having us again, buddy.
Boys,
Thanks.
all the best. We'll be keeping tabs. You're the official team on the men's side of WST. So get after it, and we'll get some updates as well. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right, there is Jason Gunnlaugsson and Reid Carruthers, and we're going to do a quick switch out, bring in Jennifer Jones and MacKenzie Zacharias, and while we do that, got to give a big thanks to our friends at Culligan Water for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Listen, Culligan, they have been the water experts, family owned for over 65 years here in Winnipeg and Manitoba. They've got it all: bottled water, coolers, citywide delivery, water filters, soft filtration, softeners, and so much more. Pop down and see them, 1200 Sargent Avenue, or you can call them up at 694-5180. Or you can find out what they can do for you, home, cottage, or business. They've got you covered. Check them out online at drinkculligan.ca or drinkculligan.com, excuse me. Hey, Labor Day Classic, many of you heading out west to Regina on the weekend. Before you do anything, pop into Royal Sports. Make sure you've got your blue and gold ready for the big game on the weekend. Of course, they've got the new special third jerseys, which you can remind all the Rider fans that those 2 stripes are for the back-to-back Grey Cups, and some exclusive back-to-back Grey Cup hats and more. There's an incredible selection of Bomber gear, but Listen, it's so much more than that. The best selection of merchandise anywhere. NFL season right around the corner. Get the newest and latest gear for your team over at Royal Sports. And of course, with the puck just about to drop on hockey season, Royal has been the hockey superstore for over 35 years. Everything you need to make this next season a great one. Pop down and see them, 750 Pembina Highway. And you can also visit them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Big tent sale coming up in September for our friends over at Royal Sports. And of course, hey, we got the game tomorrow night for the Canadian Football League and all the games. If you're not making it out, next best place to do is gather with your friends over at your local Boston Pizza. Check out all the great summer specials that are still around. Pizza flights are back. Nothing better than that when you're indecisive on what kind you want, and of course drink specials as well. And if you are staying at home for the game, check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, a big shout out to our friends at Breezy Bend and all the women participating in the Canadian National Mid-Am and Seniors Championships wrapping up today. If you have some time to get out there, they're finishing it up this afternoon. It's going to be awesome. Some great performances so far by women from across the country. And I know a big shout out, especially to the volunteers at Breezy that have made this event happen so far. All right. It was great to get the fellas in. Let's get to the main event. Maybe the most intriguing team in curling in a long time. A living legend in Jennifer Jones, coming together with MacKenzie Zacharias, one of the most talented young Manitoba teams to come out of the province in a long time. What a pleasure to have you ladies on the show. What's going on? How are you?
Fantastic. So much fun. We had a great day today, and we curled last weekend and we're curling again this weekend. So we're kind of living the life right now.
You know what? We're so used to always the big smile on your face, but even just, seeing you guys walk around here before, it really does seem like there's an incredible sense of excitement about this new chapter in your career, Jen. I mean, tell us about it.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. The girls are just so eager to work hard, and they have so much drive and determination and passion, and it's infectious. So it's great to be a part of it, and it reminds me of what I was like when I was their age. And it's just, I think we're going to learn from each other and hopefully have some success along the way.
Well, MacKenzie, great to have you on the program for the first time. I mean, this is just such a cool story. I mean, even for people that aren't like big time curling fans, I mean, everyone knows Jennifer Jones. Everyone knows the resume that she has. But if you've been paying attention the last few years, I mean, you guys, through everything you did incredibly on a national level as juniors, moving into the ranks, I mean, had really sort of made a name for yourselves. And I mean, it was a big headline when your team was teaming up with maybe the best to ever do it. I mean, how would you describe the changes for you and your team hooking up with Jen going into this upcoming season in the next 4 years?
Yeah. Throughout juniors, we all we wanted to do was play women's and get to the Scotties, and I mean, playing the Grand Slam. So now having the opportunity to play with Jen, we feel like we may have kickstarted our career or when we just got out of juniors, but there's such a big gap when it comes to curling. And when we were able to team up with Jen, we're like, okay, we're going from here to here really quick, really fast. And I mean, we're all here for it, and we're all so excited about it. And we can't wait for all the different opportunities that we're going to get playing with Jen. I mean, personally learning from her as well. It's just, I think, like Jen said, it's going to be a win-win for both parties. And we're just so excited to we're not just individual people, but we're a team together, and we're excited to show people that.
You obviously, I mean, one of the youngest teams last year around. Got to ask you, I mean, when did you first meet Jennifer Jones? Was she always a hero of yours? I mean, what sort of interaction did you have with Jen before obviously this came together and now you're teammates?
Yeah, growing up, I mean, from a small town, all we could do is curl or play hockey, right? So my parents, they're like, let's do curling. It's a little bit cheaper. No, I'm kidding. They were curlers as well, so they wanted us to just give it a try, and we kind of stuck out with it. And watching on TV, I mean, from Manitoba, you got to cheer for Manitoba. And I mean, Jennifer Jones was representing the province like every single year, and how could you not cheer for them? They won everything, did everything that I aspired to do. So she was such a role model to me, and I know the rest of the girls as well growing up. So to now have the opportunity to not only be like sitting next to her and learning from her, but to get to play with her, it's unbelievable, and something that I don't even think has completely been processed through my mind. But I mean, it's just been incredible so far this year, and we're looking forward to learning and everything that's to come.
Now, Jen, I've got to ask you. I mean, listen, we don't need to go through your entire career and the incredible players that you've played with, but I mean, you've been at the highest level for a really long time. You've done it all. I mean, there's not anything else really on the bucket list that you could do. Tell us about continuing to play and maybe moving on from your old team and this new chapter with these exciting young players from your home province.
Yeah, it was just I wasn't ready to stop. Like I always said, I keep playing. I always think I'll know inside when I'm ready to stop, and I still want to get better. So I always said I'd stop playing when I lost that desire to practice and try to improve my game. And so I still want to get better. And then when I looked at, I knew my team. We felt like our time had kind of come to an end, and that's totally okay. We're still really good friends, and everything is good. And Dawn was retiring, and it was just kind of the next chapter for everybody. And it just they're the next ones. Like they're the next up and coming team, and I admired what they did on the ice, and I really admired them as people. And I had talked to Carly a little bit, and her determination, passion, and dedication. Like they really, really want to be successful. And so, and then I talked to MacKenzie, and it just seemed to be a really good fit for what I was looking for. I wanted to work hard, see if I could improve my game and leave the game in the way that, I remember just playing and that spark and that energy and that excitement. And when Caitlin joined our team, I don't know, 12 years ago, I guess it was, she was just out of juniors too. So it was, it's kind of a similar story, and it's just really fun to be with them and to help them kind of grow into the next phase of their career.
MacKenzie, I'm interested. I mean, you mentioned that it's almost unbelievable of how how quickly your career has progressed at the women's level, and now obviously teaming up with Jen. Do you remember like the first call? I mean, when this first came on your radar? And I'm very interested after that call or conversation, what you were like 5 or 10 minutes afterwards, sort of processing what might be on the table for you.
Oh man, yeah, I do remember that first call. It was during the winter, because winter lasted forever here in Manitoba this year. And I was walking outside, and Carly's like, "Oh, we gotta call Jen. She wants to chat with you." I was like, "Okay." But we were outside. I was freezing cold, so I was like chattering on the phone. I'm like, "This is Jennifer Jones. I'm talking to you. I gotta try to like stay warm here, but also like have a good conversation with her." And I mean, from like just the way she talked, even on the phone, you could tell how passionate she was about the sport and how much she like really cared and even noticed our team, because none of us, I don't even think, realized how many people were maybe watching us or we were on their radar. So to even have that acknowledgement, and for her to say that, like, I think you guys are the next big thing, or I think you guys can take it to the next level and I want to help you with that, it was something that had never crossed my mind before. So now getting the opportunity to talk to Jennifer Jones and then her saying all these things, it was like, okay, like somebody else believes in us, like somebody else thinks that we can do this. Okay, let's do this. Like, how can we not?
You know what? And obviously, I mean, we only have so much room here. I mean, just half the team here right now. I mean, fill us in on the rest of the team, and then we'll maybe ask you similar things about the reaction of the other girls about the opportunity to play with the Queen here.
Yeah, it was shock all across the board. I think like the first time I heard about it, like Carly had texted us, she's like, "So I got a call," and it was from Jennifer Jones. I was like, what?" Like, and then the other girls too, it was like, whoa, like literally like, whoa. And yeah, we were just all shocked, but also like so inspired and encouraged, like I said before, that someone wanted to play with us and wanted to help us take it to the next step.
Now, Jennifer, how of course, you've been playing out of Ontario before. Now it's great to see you back. You'll be representing your home province in Manitoba, I guess. How is that working?
Well, I've never actually represented another province, only Manitoba, always. So when we moved, but we're still going to represent Manitoba, and everybody's living here, and it means a lot to us to represent the place that kind of brought us the love of curling.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So how did that work before? I mean, I guess you were a wild card very often in the Scotties.
It's kind of complicated, but they do allow birthright. So I was born here, so they allow me to continue to represent Manitoba even after I moved. So that's been how we've done it before, and how we'll, I guess, continue to do it this year. But all the other girls live in Manitoba, so it's just me.
And but I mean, when the season gets going, is it do you basically are you able to just get together in and around events? I mean, do you get together? Do you do a big training camp beforehand where you're throwing rocks for 8 hours a day and getting to work as a team? I mean, I am interested in the dynamics of coming together. You know, playing at such a high level. What goes into trying to get that teamwork before you're actually playing against some of the best teams in the world?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I actually came and spent a few weeks out here in the summer, which was great. Got to see some family and friends, and then we got together and kind of got to know each other. We were on the ice and had a pool party. Kind of just we had some fun. So and then before the events, well, we always just plan to either go in early or I'll come here and train with them, or if we're flying out east, then they'll stop in Ontario and train with me there. So it's definitely manageable. And even this week, we're only home. The girls are only home, for 36 hours. So it's not like you can definitely make it work. It's just a little bit of planning involved, and it's not as complicated as it sounds.
MacKenzie, for you and the other women on the team, I mean, what's life outside of curling like for you? And how much time do you guys spend together practicing, even when Jen might be in the other province? Are you guys doing school right now? Is there work outside? I mean, fill us in on everything that fills your day outside of throwing rocks and preparing for this exciting next 4 years.
Yeah, we're all four very busy. Carly and I just graduated, so we're working now as much as we can when we're not curling. We're very fortunate to have some very understanding workplaces, and they're more than willing to help us want to and be determined to achieve our goals. So we're very thankful for that. And then Emily and Lauren are still in school, so they're finishing up, but they were fortunate enough to be able to get all their classes online still, so they're going to be able to take that with them. So I think it's going to work out really well for us to be on the road most of the winter, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I guess, for most students, everything that's happened the last couple of years is probably stunk. I mean, you don't get the chance to see people. But if you're trying to, follow an Olympic dream and you're all over the place, probably is actually some real benefits from what, the changes that have happened over the last couple of years due to, unfortunately, what's happened all around the world.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how long my degree would have actually taken me if it wasn't online. Online school wasn't my favorite thing, but I'm so thankful for it in the end because I was able to take all of my hard courses online. Even some labs were online, which worked out really well with curling, especially when you have to be at school for those. So in the end, it all worked out to the best that it could have.
Jen, I was talking with Reid and Gunnar earlier, and I mean, just two of my favorite guys. I mean, that's the thing about Manitoba curling. I mean, it's the people about it, and I think for curling fans, both of these teams are so exciting. But the entire landscape of the sport, especially here in Canada, I'm not sure there's ever been more change ever in an off season. I mean, just from someone that has played against so many of these teams over the past number of years. I mean, in addition to your own situation, choosing and figuring out what you're going to do, how would you describe the incredible upheaval amongst all these teams? I mean, most of the teams will be unrecognizable as opposed to what happened at the end of last season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting start to the season. I think you're going to see it more and more. Over the last, we'll say 20 years, but every 4 years you see changes, and then you'd see more changes the next 4 years. And I think this is going to be the new trend. So it's going to be 4-year commitments, but it's going to be interesting fall just to see, for curling fans, to see how everything shakes down, and to watch their new, if they're fans, watch their new teams and how they work together. And I know we've had lots of interest in what we're doing, so it's kind of fun for curling fans. I think it's going to get a lot of people engaged just to see, just from an interesting point of view, just to see how all the new teams click together.
I had a great conversation with Brent, your husband, and Mike McEwen a couple of weeks back, and they were lamenting the lack of ice in the summer in a lot of places, and it's sort of, for someone that's maybe on the outskirts, I'm like, really? I mean, many of the European teams have facilities and programs where they're basically going 12 months a year, and it can be a bit of a disadvantage for teams. I'm interested, with the new team. You mentioned you guys have gotten together a little bit. Have you been able to throw rocks very much? I mean, what's the summer been like as far as actual curling, and how much does the pace get picked up right when you get onto the ice coming up very soon?
Yeah, we were pretty lucky. We did the same as Reid and Gunnar. We went and played in Morris, practiced in Morris, because we were a new team and we really wanted to kind of get to know each other. And so we did that over the summer. But yeah, it's challenging. It was the only place in Canada that I think that had ice. I'm not sure if that's completely accurate, but I thought so, until I think Saville Center got some in August or maybe July. So it is a little bit of a challenging situation and just coming together. We're fortunate that it's in our home province. So we could go and practice in Morris, and I got to still visit family and friends. They got to work and do their thing. But if that wasn't the case, it would be a lot more challenging to get together and to do that.
Is Morris in the summer just like the who's who of the curling world? Like are all the curlers coming in to hang out there? I mean,
you should come check it out.
I was about to say.
You could take some lessons in the summer because there's not as many people watching, and then show up and like be a superstar.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's going to be any superstar action. I'll leave that to you guys to put together. It is nice. Did I see correct? Are you guys playing this weekend?
Yeah, we play tomorrow.
So full disclosure, I knew that this was happening, and I'm really looking forward to hooking up with you all. And, the date was September 1st. Okay. This is, Remus, of course, has been away. So I've been working on making sure we were able to do this, and shout out to Neil and the gang here who've been very, very helpful to make sure we could pull all this off. But yesterday I was doing our Coolbet lines, and I noticed that, there's a curling event coming up, and I pulled it up and you're in it. I'm like, wait a second, we're doing something live in person on Thursday at Princess Ottawa. So basically, you guys have a flight later on tonight or first thing tomorrow? And
no, tonight. We fly out straight from here. We'll go.
No rest for the wicked.
or the kind. I don't know.
Is this the first actual official event that you guys will be playing as your new team?
No, we played last weekend too.
Okay.
They flew home on Tuesday.
August events, is that a little earlier than normal? MacKenzie, I'll ask you, what was it like? First time as a new team, how did it go, and how did it feel?
It was awesome. It was so much fun. We flew into Quebec and we played in Saint Félicien.
Saint Paul.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, it was great to get on the ice for the first time and then work out a couple of kinks. But I mean, there were so many positive things, and things honestly just clicked right away when we got out there. Myself, I was playing a new position, so I had to learn a little bit about that. But it was so much fun, and I'm just so excited for the rest of the season and getting to play nearly every weekend with the rest of this team.
Well, it is neat. And I mean, I can feel your excitement. And I think we all knew that would be the case when we heard about the news. But I mean, Jennifer, in your situation, you're with something new and you feel all this youthful exuberance. I mean, it must be almost like, a new beginning in a lot of ways. But it must have a real effect on you as well, that, it's obviously at a different stage. You've got a family and stuff like that. But in a way, I mean, does it bring you back to kind of where you were a few years back before you'd accomplished so many of the things that are on the resume now?
Yeah, in a little bit. Like, it does kind of bring you back in time for sure. But I love to curl. I love to curl as much, I think, as anybody. And I just love being on the ice, and I love being a part of a team. And they're truly amazing teammates. So I feel really blessed to have this opportunity. And then just, to watch curling through their eyes. And, obviously I've had a lot of experience, but to see it through their eyes is pretty magical. And they're so great with my kids. My kids came over, they were playing with them, and they always ask me about them. We've become instantaneously friends. So as much as there is a little bit of an age gap, I never feel the age gap at all. And they always ask me about the girls and what we're doing, and they're super engaged, and they're wonderful people. It's a privilege to share the ice with them, and I'm really excited to see what the season brings.
No one would know this better than you, considering everything that you've accomplished. I mean, when you think about it for your sport, what's the most important parts of making a great team? And how important is getting along and really connecting off the ice, as opposed to the way you guys work together as teammates on the ice?
I think that really depends on the people, but I believe that team chemistry will give you that extra 5 to 10%. Like, everybody can be great players and you can make the shots, but that team chemistry, that belief in each other, can really take you to the next level. And that's one thing that we weren't sure. You never know when you get together and you're forming a new team how that's going to go. And I know I'm speaking for myself, but I thought it was it went exceptionally well in the summer. We had so many laughs, and it just felt really natural on the ice, and just natural to be around each other and to go for dinner and room together and all of those things. So, and super supportive. I feel like we're all really supportive on the ice, and that's kind of one of the biggest hurdles to get over, and we've already got it.
You mentioned 5 members of the team. How does that work? I mean, do you have a regular strategy? You switch it up in and around? I mean, or is that just something that'll sort of you'll see how it goes as it goes, depending on the situation?
Yeah, the 5-person team. That's not something that's super common right now in curling, but I know like Jen has a little bit of experience with it. They had 5 people for the past couple of years, I believe. And we tried it out last weekend, and honestly, it worked pretty well. Like Emily and I switched out that weekend, and then this weekend it'll be a little bit different. And our lineup will kind of be a little bit fluid, I think, throughout the year, and everyone's going to get a chance to play. That's the whole point of the 5-person team is nobody's a fifth. So everyone is a team member, everyone gets to play. And honestly, I think it's going to make us better because 1, we get a little bit more rest. And 2, we're going to be playing a couple different positions. And I think that's going to make us all better teammates and also better players in the end.
I mean, you do have some experience on that. I mean, how different is that? Is there, I don't want to say like internal competition, but I mean, when you have that extra person, everyone playing at a high level, I'd imagine the idea, hopefully the result is it really does bring out the best in everyone when they've got the opportunity to be on the ice.
Yeah, and that's the idea for sure. And you never know how it's going to work again. But then last weekend, I feel like everybody's really selfless. Like everybody just wants the best for the team and whatever that means for them. And that's always what you aspire to. But then you never know if you're actually going to get that. And I feel like we've already got that on the team. We just want to do what's best for the team. And yeah, so far it's working out good. And like MacKenzie said, you can get some rest if somebody's not feeling well, if somebody's got another commitment. So we can still play a lot, but still in the same breath, like get a little bit of rest in there as well. But it's really important for us that everybody feels like we're one team. We're one team. Like nobody's the fifth player. We're all equal teammates on and off the ice.
Well, I have to say, selfishly, and I think for Manitoba curling fans, I'll just speak for them. I think people are just so excited about the look of your team, as well as Reid playing with Jason. And obviously, I selfishly, I'm extra happy that you guys are under the Princess Auto umbrella, because hopefully we'll be getting you guys on for a few more little updates on our Princess Auto curling reports throughout the season to see how the team is doing.
Anytime. And the girls were like, we're going to try to do some like stuff on the road. So maybe we could even do an interview. We're going to try to take it next level on all counts. So if you need us, you just let us know.
Well, listen, we will certainly make that happen. And just seriously though, I mean, the ability to travel, play these events, it is expensive. The support of a title sponsor like Princess Auto, I mean, I'd imagine this doesn't happen if you don't get that. I mean, just a quick,
you couldn't do it without the support. Like Princess Auto has been absolutely incredible, and we couldn't do this without them. But it's more, you feel like you're a part of their family, and that is so rare in life. You just really feel like everybody's behind you. You're part of this incredible family. And I think the girls even walking in here today, like it's just so evident. So not only do they support us financially, which obviously we couldn't pay the bills without, but at the end of the day, they also support us just being there to lift us up when we're down, and they're going to support us win or lose. And that's super rare in today's world. And we feel really, really privileged, and we're very lucky to have them as part of our team. So thank you. And everybody they're just an amazing company, and hopefully everybody will go out there and support them because they really are an incredible place.
Well, listen, they've been a big part of curling. I mean, obviously supporting some of the, sponsoring some of the big events on the tour.
Yeah.
But certainly with the head office being here in Manitoba, to have, two of our top teams representing it. And MacKenzie, I'm sure it's a special vibe around here too. I mean, of the people and just how happy they are to be involved with your team.
It is. From the moment we walked into the door, like through the door, we were just like welcomed completely. And like we met so many people, and they were all so kind and so generous, and they were here for us, and we were here for them. And it's not like they're giving us and we're taking, or we're giving them anything and they're taking. It's a complete partnership. And like Jen said, it feels like a family, and everyone involved here is just so happy and so willing to just help us try to be the best that we can. And I mean, we're here for them too, and trying to promote their brand as well. And honestly, we couldn't ask for a better title sponsor. They're incredible.
Well, listen, and I don't think they could have done a better job picking teams to work with this year.
You.
So, listen, an absolute pleasure to see you again, MacKenzie. Great to meet you for the first time, and book it. We'll be talking to you guys throughout the season, and everyone in the province will be cheering you guys on for a great season first together, and hopefully 4 great years, and maybe return to a certain event that you've been to a couple times.
That would be a good plan, wouldn't it? So yeah, and thanks everybody out there for all the support. We really do love it, and it means a lot.
Good luck this weekend. We'll be paying attention.
Yes.
I can't believe the season's already started.
Tomorrow 9 a.m. we play.
No flight delays, please. No flight delays, please. All the best. There it is. Wow, Jennifer Jones and MacKenzie Zacharias. What a fun conversation that was. The energy. And listen, we've spoken with Jen. Everyone's familiar with the energy that she's always brought to the sport. But I got to tell you, the hearing and just meeting MacKenzie for the first time, that is really, really fun stuff, and cannot wait to see how they can do together. All right, we've talked a lot of curling today with some special guests. We do have a lot to get to. Brandon Rewucki's coming up next. But first things first, got to thank our friends at Knott Auto Corp for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you're needing a new vehicle or thinking of an upgrade, before you do anything, talk to our friends at Knott. The experts can get you into an amazing deal. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Knott team? Incredible vehicles on the lot. And if there's a special make and model that you're looking for in particular, Knott will source it, get it here to Winnipeg for you, and get you into it at the best possible price. Knott Auto Corp, Waverly and McGillivray, and online at knott.ca. And hey, gang, tonight is the night. Our first ever Winnipeg Sports Talk Sports Trivia Night down at Little Brown Jug. First off, thank you to the incredible response. I'm looking forward to seeing many of you tonight at it. There still is a few spots left, I understand. So if you haven't already, click that link in the description, or you can go to yesterday's show with the description on YouTube. It's Eventbrite. Be there or pop by. I'm sure we might be able to squeeze a couple more people in tonight. But 7 p.m. it's going to get going. Maybe come by there a little bit earlier. Somewhat of a WST meetup. And rumors around, I can't guarantee. I'm not exactly sure when Remus's flight is scheduled to get in, but he may be making an appearance as well. I will tell you he'll be there tomorrow. But huge thanks to Little Brown Jug. Tonight is the night. We hope to see you there. And, of course, you can pick up all your favorite beers at Little Brown Jug on William Avenue and online at littlebrownjug.ca. And again, Nick and Nikki DQ, incredible support of ours. And they're supporting the big Canadian Mid-Am and Women's Senior Championship out of Breezy Bend. But with it being so hot today, I don't think you could have a better day all year to pop by your Nick and Nikki DQ. DQ Northgate, DQ Niverville, DQ St. Anne's, and DQ Polo Park. Grab a stack burger if you're hungry, and definitely get on one of those amazing blizzards that only Nick and Nikki DQ can fire up. And again, DQ at DQ Manitoba on Instagram if you do want to order a cake for an upcoming event. All right. Whoa, the hair is looking good today. Let's get Rewucki in here right away to get the chat going off. Brandon, always a pleasure to have you on the program. How are you? Staying cool today? The flow is in.
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, some people, my wife and my best buddy would think that I got my hair cut for a wedding I have tomorrow, but it was actually for my 158 appearance on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So looking good, feeling good, ready to go.
How long is the operation when you go to get that done? I mean, we're not talking a quick 5 minutes and out of here, I take it.
No, it's not quite like a singleton's cut. It's a little more in depth with that. I'm usually out of there in like 45 minutes.
Is it
my
one
hair?
person? Is it
Yeah,
one person
yeah,
or is there a team of stylists?
Katie is the head stylist, and then we have a few backups with the blow jars behind. No, but yeah, shout out to Katie. We went to school back in like grade 6 together, so I've known her for a long time now. And yeah, I mean it takes a little while for the haircut to happen. But like the actual like styling of the hair, it's like 30 seconds. I just kind of run my hand through it and away we go.
Well, you're bringing it today. Everyone's been bringing it on the show today. Certainly, it's been a heck of a lot of fun down here at Princess Auto. But I do want to talk some hockey. And listen, we don't have anything new to report. I mean, our conversations about the Jets are the same. But I did want to ask you, we get a little bit of maybe a clue as to why certainly the Jet blue line remains the same with the trade of Dmitry Kulikov yesterday to the Anaheim Ducks for future considerations. I mean, there's been a couple of deals where players have been trying to move guys, and certainly Minnesota's been a situation where they've been trying to, move an asset. They're moving assets and getting absolutely no return. And is this, I mean, I don't know, my read on this is that maybe, the prices that we thought you might be able to get in the return on some of these players just hasn't been there. And, Kevin Cheveldayoff's waiting to try to not basically give away a solid NHL player for absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the spot you put yourself in. when you try to make moves at the beginning of September. And there's 3 weeks until training camp, and the regular season isn't that far. Like, teams all have their rosters essentially built. Their budgets and their caps are essentially, I would imagine, for the most part, capped out. That's why teams do their business right around free agency and the draft. That's why GMs take a couple months off afterwards, because that's where the lion's share of the work is done. So, like, by design or not, this is the reality of the Winnipeg Jets situation. And, you know, they really have no leverage to make any kind of a trade right now, to be honest. I mean, you're almost banking on, at this point, what, like an injury to happen in training camp, or a malcontent to show up at camp that doesn't like his situation and wants out. And that's not the most fruitful option to hope for if you're the Winnipeg Jets management group.
How do you think it finishes? I mean, something's got to give. I mean, I think, you know, that's part of the reason why we've been expecting something like this to happen, and I imagine they've been trying to do something for most of the summer. I mean, the clock is ticking. Is this maybe a more advantageous time to make a move, considering people are, you know, and teams are going to, you know, have a better chance to identify things early in training camp and then potentially make it? Or do we get to the point, and I certainly hope this doesn't happen, where you have such a logjam, you've got to make some very, very tough decisions that probably are somewhat unfair decisions to certain players because of their eligibility or not when it comes to waivers and, you know, not losing assets for nothing?
I'd be happy to be wrong, but at this point, I think what you see is what you get with this roster. And I think there's going to be a lot of upset people, fans mainly, and then some prospects as well, at the fact that they're just going to be roadblocked by a numbers game. I just don't know where the trades are at this point that could possibly happen that alleviates the situation for Winnipeg. I mean, whether you're talking Blake Wheeler up front and trying to move $8 million and potentially get some value back, by the sounds of it. Like, it's not the for future considerations that we saw yesterday. So, I mean, there's that issue. And at this point, for me, I don't know how you find a way to overcome that. Just too much money, and too many teams are already committed to what they're paying everybody. But even on the blue line there, I think really your only move at this point, if you want to get something of value back, is playing the waiting game a little bit, and maybe a team gets desperate after an injury, or a prospect or two isn't panning out on their team, and they make a move for a guy. Other than that, though, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. Is there a move out there right now? I really don't see it, and I feel really, really bad for either a Dylan Sandberg or a Ville Heinola. I mean, maybe even a Logan Stanley too, if you want to throw him in there, where they're worthy of NHL playing time, consistent playing time, and I'd be pretty surprised if all three of those guys were getting that to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, and part of me kind of feels for Rick Bowness too, because I mean, you're coming in as the guy into a brand new team, and you've got this situation, which, I mean, obviously is difficult, I think, for all parties involved. And, you know, you may be pushed into a situation where you can't exactly make the lineup decisions that you like because, or if you do and you go that way, then that really puts the team in a jam, because, you know, you've either got guys making significant salaries that aren't playing, or in the situation that you're mentioning, you know, because of numbers and waiver eligibility, you might have some guys playing in the, in the American Hockey League for a period of time. And listen, I don't know. We haven't heard a lot from Dylan Sandberg. He was basically, I mean, should have been playing top 4 minutes towards the end of the season there. You know, I'm not sure what a conversation looks like with him. And of course, Ville Heinola, a first rounder that, you know, seemingly is ready for a legitimate shot and opportunity. Those will be tough conversations for a new head coach to have, especially if, you know, all things being equal.
It sucks, especially because you've developed him as an organization for so long, right? But while I would love to see Kovacevic get a shot in the NHL, that kind of thing happens to a lot of teams, right? Like, a lot of teams have a Kovacevic, and that sometimes you're just going to lose guys like that. That to me is kind of just the unfortunate reality of the business. But what would suck for me is, and you touched on it there, like watching the games at the end of last year, would you not maybe say Dylan Sandberg's the second best left-handed defenseman in this organization? At the very least, he kind of breaks even with Brendan Dillon right now. And if you want to go tied to the young guy, then I have no problem expecting him to take a bit of a step this year. So you have that. And, Ville Heinola, while, different games and different style than Brendan Dillon plays, you'd have to think that as far as upside goes, there's no reason not to start him on the third pair and even give him 15 minutes a night or whatever it might be, right? Like that's the end. It's not like we're talking about this at the start of last season and there's still a lot of question marks about these guys. Like for me, I've seen enough of Dylan Sandberg to pencil him in as number 2 on the left side. I have no problem giving Ville Heinola either the left or the right side spot on the third pairing there. And I think their play at the NHL and AHL level warrants it. But this is the danger of not getting your business done early in the off season, where if you would have moved either, two of or some of them, a mixture of Dylan, Schmidt, and Stanley, this isn't an issue right now. And as it stands, you do wonder just how much of a malcontent one of these guys might be, one of these prospects might be, where they're looking at their situation and going, look, I don't have a lot of time to make bank in the NHL. I've shown that I'm ready. If I'm not going to get a shot here, give it to me somewhere else. And that would be, again, an unfortunate situation because they seem primed to take a big step this year. And, watching what Rick Bowness did there in Dallas, obviously with a much more higher pedigree player, but seeing what Rick Bowness was able to do with a guy like Miro Heiskanen as a 19-year-old, man, you can't help but think, what could Rick do if he gets a hold of Dylan Sandberg and Ville Heinola? Could he maybe turn one of these or both of these guys into maybe an impact player on the back end for the team?
Well, that is, you just nailed it. And that is somewhat the ironic part of the situation the team is in right now. Because if you're looking for reasons to sort of be excited about the season and to be optimistic, the fact that Rick Bowness did such a good job with many younger players that, kind of guided them into eventually starring roles. And again, I think you're right. The pedigree of a Heiskanen certainly is maybe above the players that we're talking about. But, the opportunity was there. He grabbed it, and Bowness did everything he could to help those players get to that. So, best case scenario, that's exactly what happens for the Winnipeg Jets, especially if you're in a situation where you're not really adding much from outside. What would be a real shame, I think, in most people is if, the circumstances based on contracts and the guys that you have signed already prevented that from happening. And as we touched on before, I think there's a personal side to it too, that at what point when you've played the way those two young men have played at the American League level and in limited time in the National Hockey League, do you get that chance to go forward? And God knows we'd have enough talk about guys wanting out and guys wanting to be traded. Last thing you want to do is give them more ammo for that sort of thing as you go into a new season with everything presumably starting from scratch.
Yeah, and the other part of it too is I don't think it's a situation where, we see Anaheim last year, for example, they got a bunch of young guys. They throw them in there because it's a rebuilding year, and the team suffers because of it. There's some talent there, no doubt, but generally playing a bunch of youngsters doesn't help to get you 2 points each and every night. I don't think that's the case here, though. And that's why it would be so frustrating to see either one of these guys not get consistent playing time, because I think both Sandberg and Heinola can help you win now. Like, this is the dream scenario as a GM. You make some draft picks, and while they're on their ELCs or making under $1 million, they can still provide a decent amount of impact for you. So it's, to me, that's why I wanted to see a move. I wanted to see a veteran body shipped out, even if their play didn't necessarily warrant it, because I'd be hard pressed, man, to be convinced that playing Sandberg and Heinola in this lineup would be a downgrade over what they had last year. And that to me is the biggest reason why you want to give youngsters a shot, is that, hey, the base level is at a pretty high mark, but the upside is through the roof compared to some of the other options that we have.
Well, and another point that I think needs to be made, and you can look back at the 17-18 Winnipeg Jets team, even the year before. If you want to be good and you want to contend, one of the things you need is guys playing significant minutes and making real contributions to your team on entry-level deals. And certainly when you look at the guys that are in that mix from the blue line, it's 2 pretty clear guys, and even Logan Stanley that's not making a lot of money. if you can get those guys playing at a level that, helps you win hockey games, it also, for a team, and again, we've talked about this quite a bit this summer, if you were able to do that, it would allow you to move some of the cap distribution from heavily onto the blue line and maybe get a little bit of help for a team that certainly doesn't have the depth at forward that it's had in a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Like it seems, and that's why we're both kind of like, something has to happen, right? Like it makes too much sense on so many levels for the Jets to not do something like that. And at the same time, there's, not even rebuilding teams. There's more than enough decent teams out there that are probably looking to add a second or a third pair defenseman like a Dillon or a Schmidt if they can fit it in under their salary cap, right? And if it means moving off a $3 million forward, you have to imagine there's suitors out there. It really would be surprising, but I have my doubts that it's actually going to happen at this point because teams and GMs generally have their lineup set and they want to see what they have first before they ultimately make a move here. But it's kind of mandatory to. The Sandberg Halo discussion is one thing, but man, the Jets' bottom six as it stands right now is unfortunately one of the worst in the league, and the top six isn't as dynamic as it has been in the past to carry it. So you need impacts to come in. You need reinforcements to come in and deliver something in a big way here, or else this team is going to go through pockets like they did last year where, the odd night when the first and the second line aren't delivering offensively, you're going to be banking on a 39 or a 40 save performance from Connor Hellebuck. He's capable of it, but yeah, not the most sound way to try and win hockey games for sure.
Rewucki, I'm looking forward to seeing Cole Perfetti back on the ice at training camp in the preseason and presumably playing in the Jets' top six. What are realistic expectations for Perfetti in your mind this season? And how much pressure in your mind is on him, considering that, he's in that top six. He's going to be getting that chance. It's a very different story as opposed to the blue line. They got to count on him to produce. What's realistic? And because I know there's a lot of people that I think are expecting him to come out, and I think we do need to maybe couch expectations, but at the same time, I hope that he really can be an impact player because the Jets certainly need him to be that after missing all that time at the end of last season after he was injured.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually going to get to that question in my next episode because I've been asked by a few people about that. First off, how much pressure is on him? A lot, probably too much, if we're being honest here, because we don't know what Blake Wheeler's status ultimately is going to be here, but on the right side is a ton of question marks. There's not really a great fallback option for the Jets to lean on as far as pushing somebody up into the top six. As far as prospects go, I guess the next closest might be Chaz Lucius, but for me, he's probably 2 years away from being an NHL guy. So there's no, former high draft pick you can kind of call up and see if he gives you a spark. And there's no real veteran option either. So, fairly unfairly, Perfetti's got a lot on his plate this upcoming season in terms of needing him to produce. But what would be realistic? Like, I guess what would be a good season for Cole Perfetti? For me, it would be to play as close to 80 games as possible. The only thing you wonder about a guy like that who's a little bit undersized, isn't the fastest skater in the world. It's just going to be, how does he hold up physically? And, it didn't work out so well for him as a 19-year-old at the NHL level, which is pretty normal. So I think you want to see him play into the 70-ish games for this upcoming season. And I think 40, 50 points would be a pretty good mark for him. He's still young as hell. I know he's lit up the AHL, but he still hasn't played a ton of professional hockey, and I think that would be a pretty good mark. I think that would constitute reason for optimism for him. I think this upcoming season, the next season, is where you would hope that you kind of bank on a bit of an explosion offensively, and maybe he becomes a 60, 70, hell, even a point a game guy. But for this upcoming season, a lot of it will depend too on where he's placed, which power play unit he's on. But if he came through with 75 games and 50 points, that to me is pretty close to best case scenario for Cole Perfetti in his rookie year.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and I think that is on the high end as well. And the ability to stay healthy and to play the grind of 80 games is going to be, is going to be a factor, obviously. And then the other thing is where he plays. Now, I think we can all agree there's a very clear top 6 right now. How that shakes out remains to be seen. And Mike was on with us, Mike McIntyre, a few days ago, and he said, we kind of know, we're going through 9 training camps with Paul Maurice. You sort of know what you're going to get. And, he tries some things early on and then often would go back to Old Faithful. Everything's on the table right now, whether it's the start of camp in the preseason. Give me a guess on how those 2 lines look. Who is with who when you're figuring out who's with Scheifele, who's with Dubois, where is Ehlers and Connor, and then Blake Wheeler and Cole Perfetti, where they fit in?
Yeah, so Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor, and Canada Life Center burns down is probably how I see it, taking place early on. I would have to imagine that. I mean, I guess to label lines is kind of weird. I just don't see how optics-wise you could have Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor together on a line once again to start a season. I have doubts as well about having Scheifele and Connor on the same line as well because, these past 2-3 seasons, they've been arguably the worst defensive forwards in all of hockey. And even with, bonuses structure coming in, I don't know if you want to bank on having those 2 guys play together. What's more intriguing to me is just who Perfetti would seemingly mesh with stylistically. Like, would you want to put him with Kyle Connor or would you want to put him with Nikolai Ehlers? And I don't know what the right answer is. I don't really have an answer yet. We just haven't seen a lot of them playing together. I mean, he played with Kyle Connor for the most part in his little stint with the Jets last year, and I thought he looked great. I love watching Cole Perfetti play, and maybe that's where I might lean to. But again, having said that, I wouldn't mind having him play on a line with Nikolai Ehlers because Ehlers has shown that he can drive his own line. And so that maybe takes a little more pressure off a guy like Cole Perfetti. I guess if you ask me right now, I wouldn't mind seeing Scheifele, Ehlers, Perfetti. And I'd probably stick with Dubois and Connor, who seem to have a good thing going. And if Blake Wheeler's, going to be here by the time the regular season rolls around, I just think it's of utmost importance to almost symbolically drop him down to the second line. I'm still playing with some high-end players at Dubois and Connor. But I wouldn't mind seeing Cole Perfetti and Nikolai Ehlers do some magic out there. I think the way they think the game and process it, they might play well off each other. And the nice thing with that is it would also, in a way, force Mark Scheifele to be the trigger man on that line. And, it's kind of crazy to say because Kyle Connor was on pace for 50 last year, but Mark Scheifele might have the best shot on the team. And I just don't think he uses it enough. I think too often he's a little deferential with this play, and I think putting those 3 together might force Mark Scheifele to be a little more selfish in terms of shooting the puck more. And I think the more he shoots the puck, we're going to see a lot more goal production from him, and ultimately I think the line will be a lot better as a result too.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I do think that Rick Bowness is also, hey, first things first, you want what's best for the team. But I think also early on in the season, putting Nikolai Ehlers in a spot to get off to a great start and really help elevate his game in a higher role, by figuring out a place to make the most of his talents on the power play, all a big part of it. Hey, listen, before we go, I really enjoyed the last Skates and Plates episode, kind of comparing rankings around the National Hockey League with a number of categories. What's coming up next on S&P, and when are you dropping the next episode?
Yeah, it'll be tomorrow. It's a mailbag episode, so everybody got a chance to yell at me on Twitter, which was awesome. I loved it. At Brandon_Rewucki if you want to yell at me too. I think it's great. I love it. And it's funny too because I always try to be like level-headed when people give me criticism. And then the first time I see a negative comment, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. But no, it's great. I love the passion. Yeah, talked about, and that'll be where, all the questions and comments about the forward ranking, defense, goalies, forwards maybe a lot lower than people might think, but I feel like I make a fairly compelling case as to why they're there. And then the kickoff next week, it'll be the full-on team rankings episode. So we'll get a sense of where the Jets as a club rank, and if they're going to be on the outside looking in to start the season.
Rue, always great having you on the program. Enjoy the long weekend. Enjoy your wedding tomorrow, and we'll talk to you next week and really start doing some training camp previews, because it's pretty much all that's left to be done right now, unless we get a gift from the GM and have something juicy to talk about the next couple of weeks. But I know you won't be holding your breath on that.
Yeah. Beauty, man. Yeah, I hope you and all the listeners have an awesome Labor Day, and let's kick some green ass on Monday. How about that?
You know it. Thanks so much. There's Brandon Rewucki. And speaking of kicking some green butt, we're going to discuss the Labor Day Classic coming right up with Jeff Hamilton, who's back from practice. And listen, if you're wondering why it looks a little different, if you popped in a little later on, we're live here at Princess Auto headquarters. Tons of their staff here right now, meeting with the Reid Carruthers team and Jennifer Jones team. Really great scene here. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of both of those units. And our crew here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. And hey, a lot of you are going to be going out to the game on the weekend in Regina. Even more of you are going to be filling out a sold-out IG field for the Banjo Bowl. And before the game, make sure you head on over to the Princess Auto Tailgate Zone, the place to be before all Bomber games, just outside the stadium. $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs and pop, DJ Finesse spinning. It is on. And, of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers. Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the place where you'll find the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, national headquarters here in Winnipeg as well. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And, hey, while you're at the Princess Auto Tailgate or at IG Field, make sure, if you haven't already, to pick up a can of the new ready-to-drink Canadian Club pre-mixed CC and ginger. Available now in beer stores. Grab a 6-pack tonight, or maybe a couple 6-packs heading into the weekend. And, of course, available at Manitoba Liquor Marts as well. Canadian Club, Canada's favorite rye, official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, also available throughout IG Field and at your local Manitoba Liquor Marts. And another great night at Assiniboia Downs last night. Couple close calls on our picks, but we'll be back at it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week with live racing. Normally would be done now, but because of the late start of the season, there still is time to get out to Assiniboia Downs. Make a reservation in the dining room on live racing nights, 885-3330. And you can find out all the information at asdowns.com. And, of course, you can bet online at hpibet.com on ASD and other tracks around the world. All right. Normally we'd get to the Bombers a little earlier, but it's sort of a weird day. We had our curling friends in, Rewucki, but Jeff Hamilton is back from practice with the latest on the Bombers' preparation for the Labor Day Classic. And Hammer joins us now. What's going on? Thanks for doing this. How are things down at IG Field today as the Bombers prepare for one of the biggest regular season games of the season?
Well, Huss, they actually aren't at IG Field. They're at the field beside the soccer complex. So they're not. And the reason why I even mention that is because this would be the week that they absolutely pump in artificial crowd noise. And it's a way different beast in the stadium versus, on that side field. I don't know. I'm sure it's as effective or close to being as effective. But what I will tell you it's not a situation where you sit and watching practice and you want to, not claw your eyes out, but the version of that for your ears. And so it's been good, but it's also been extremely hot. I'm not going to complain about the heat. This is September, as we know, and we don't get these days very often. So, but all in all, good to be on.
Well, first of all, we'll talk about the game, the matchups and whatnot, but great to hear Brandon Alexander was out of practice yesterday. I mean, how's he's looking? And, well, I know you were paying close attention to Brady Oliveira. There was the questions about Demerio Houston after he was injured last week. Now they've had a few days to rest and they're back on the practice field. What do we know about the infirmary for the Bombers going into the Labor Day game?
Yeah, so after last game, I thought, we were going to show up at practice tomorrow or yesterday, with a handful of other people that were going to be added to the injury list. Now, there were a few, of course. Demerio Houston is not on the field yet. He of course, got injured last game, and that I don't know if it was Malik Henry's first or second of 3 touchdowns, but, you know, he pulled up lame on that. The good news, I think, on that is that he's not wearing anything. Like, he's not in a cast. He's not in a, you know, boot. A boot nowadays doesn't really tell you anything. It's as much as rehab as it is for, you know, broken bones and other things as well. So, so that's kind of good news. But, you know, Demerio Houston's probably isn't going to be in the lineup this week. He might not be in the lineup for the rematch Banjo Bowl, which is a big shot. Jamal Parker, who played in relief of him against Calgary, will be back in that position, as well as returning kickoffs. But yeah, I mean, some of the injuries, Brady Oliveira, there was a little bit of concern, got x-rays on, I think it was Friday. They came back favorable, and he looks no worse for wear. So he's back in. The CFL's leading rusher too. And then you mentioned Brandon Alexander on the field, not off the 6th game. So that's why he's not talking to media. That's why he's, you know, not made available after practice, but certainly a good sign. I mean, he looked good. I saw, not limping, but I think if you're going to be testing that knee, you know, you're going to be, you know, it's going to be your first real test to be in those drills. And so he looked pretty good. You know, I saw a guy ask him if he was good, and he put a thumbs up. So there's your medical report from me on 37. But then, yeah, there's a couple other guys, like Michael Couture's back for the first time since injuring himself week 1. Not sure if he's going to be in the lineup. It's probably just based on what the offensive line has been doing this week. He's been kind of playing in the guard position. He has been taking reps at center too, so you never know. But you know, I'm looking at he's probably looking at maybe another week. Who knows though? We'll figure that out Saturday when they release the depth chart. Some other names. There was Noah Hallett, who hasn't been in for a while. There was a guy in Kyrie Wilson who wasn't on the field. Not to get anyone excited, don't know what his future looks like. It's still, you know, I think he's got a long way back, but he's shed his cast. He's kind of out there. Greg Ellingson is on the 6th game still, but he was doing these kind of like, he wasn't doing the drills, but he was kind of being that guy who was hitting receivers. So, you know, for a guy with an injured foot, for him to even be upright and doing that stuff, that's got to be good news too. But yeah, it looks like there's maybe not a ton of guys coming back right away, but certainly some good news from some guys who haven't been playing for quite some time.
Yeah, Ellingson is interesting. And I still think about the way and the circumstances that Nick Dembski was activated earlier this year, where he was taken off the 6th game. He hadn't practiced, and he went in and had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter of that game against the Calgary Stampeders. So I would imagine that anything is possible with some of these players. But in particular for Alexander, do you think that, you know, he probably needs another week of practice? Like, would he, even if he's feeling good, could he be a possibility for this game on the weekend? Or should we maybe pump the brakes on that?
Oh, 0%. There's no way he's available. There's no way, you know, I mean, he's just getting back to practicing. Like I said, he's still on the 6th game. I mean, if he was, they weren't going to pull him off the 6th game and get him, like, he's not in defensive packages. That's another name, Malcolm Thompson, who's on the 6th game. He's back practicing too, so that's good news. And Brendan O'Leary-Orange is also back, but practicing, that is. So, but I mean, as far as Alexander goes, I mean, I think at this case, just given it was a torn ACL, required surgery, obviously an intensive rehab, I think he's going to want to get into not just drills, but, you know, be in that starting defensive, you know, spot at safety, and going through a lot of like, you know, more serious hits, right? More serious. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of hitting in practice, if any. They do have padded practices, but I think he's going to, you know, if you're asking me, and you are, he's going to need at least another week, I imagine, to get back. So I wouldn't be too hopeful about this weekend, but I think that question changed a little bit once they return next week for the Banjo Bowl.
And you sort of mentioned that Ellingson was out there sort of not necessarily participating in practice, but do we know much about the nature of his injury? And is there expectations or hopes that he'll be back sooner than doing the full 6 weeks?
Well, if you ask Mike O'Shea, he's hopeful for anybody to come back at any point in time. So, you know, we can't really take much from that. But you know what? As far as Ellington's injury, I was at practice last Sunday. It was the first practice of the week. It was just, he had just returned to the lineup against Calgary and was, week before that against Montreal, and then was getting ready for Calgary. Just a routine drill, just a passing drill, kind of turned and you could, he kind of pulled up lame, if you will, grabbed at his foot, kind of was a little bit uncomfortable, limped over the sidelines, and then was carted back to the stadium for further evaluation, and then he's on the 6th game. So, I think there is potential to take him off early. That's not out of insight or anything like that, but just the fact that he was up, and again, he wasn't doing drills, but he was kind of being a decoy / blocker for for a small receiver drill. So just the fact that he's up on his foot, I mean, it has to be somewhat a good news. But looking at Greg, I mean, clearly he's had a great season when he's been in the lineup. He missed 3 games prior to joining. That was with a hip injury though, so it's a separate injury. He is 34 at the end of the year. So he's getting up there. I think you need to take care of your body a little bit more. So it's one of those things where if you're rolling, right, you're not rushing this guy back to improve to 11-1 or 12-1 per se. I'm not saying they're holding him back, but we always know that regular season games all be obviously important to the overall standings. You're not going to rush someone back with risk of getting injured when the games really count for the playoffs. And I'm not suggesting either that this is necessarily going to be a slow crawl to the postseason, and we aren't going to see Ellington back for weeks or for even his whole 6-game stint. But I'm also not ruling it out either, just based on what we've seen and the fact that he's not practicing. So the fact that he's not even close to practicing this week tells you that he's clearly not playing this weekend. And again, we'll reevaluate next week to see where he's at in the sideline come workouts next week.
Well, much like last year, and especially with the developments in BC, I mean, the Bombers in a pretty enviable situation with the schedule they've got going forward with 2 more bye weeks and the 10-1 record so far. That being said, BC made a big trade to address the quarterback position without Nathan Rourke. How significant do you think the addition of Vernon Adams Jr. is to BC as they try to, continue to keep their spot in the standings after that great start, but without their phenom young QB?
Yeah, so the way I would probably describe that is an upgrade from what they have, a downgrade from what they had. So, clearly I don't think you're expecting Vernon Adams to be a Nathan Rourke. I mean, he's got some of those skills that I think the BC Lions want out of their quarterback, particularly an ability to, escape the pocket, extend plays with your legs. We all know Vernon Adams can do that. He's a very, a rogue player, if you will, in the sense that he's it's very, very rarely does it look like it seems like it's dialed up a lot of his, highlight reel plays. More often than not, he's escaping a couple tackles, rolling out, outside the pocket and delivering a pass. And so, I think when you looked at, BC, I mean, I've been kind of whatever. I'm not going to, I'm kind of on the train that, of course they're going to trade for a QB. I was saying that, as Nathan Rourke went down and was ruled out ultimately for the regular season and most likely the entire year. And I think that's an indicator that them picking up Vernon Adams is that they're not getting Nathan Rourke back this season. Definitely doesn't confirm that by any means, but anyways, kind of leans towards that direction. But as far as Vernon Adams goes and the weapons that are in BC, it's definitely something I think the Lions had to do to keep their season, somehow rolling here. I mean, this isn't other professional sports leagues where you have a bit of a winning window or whatever. This is in the CFL, and particularly the BC Lions. It's this year, because everybody is on 1-year contracts and there's no guarantee you're going to bring back the same group. And even if you do bring back or try to bring back the same group, assuming Nathan Rourke doesn't, assuming his injury kind of leads to him playing another season in the CFL before maybe testing some other opportunities in the NFL, if they come his way, he's going to be more expensive. So I just, at this point in time, I think BC had to address it. I think they gave it the 1 game, to see what Michael O'Connor could do. Obviously, he got injured even before he was injured. Wasn't really making his plays. Now, you got to understand, it was his first CFL start. So, even if he did, I don't think anybody had super high expectations for him, but he didn't look great. And then Antonio Pipkin, kind of the same story. A guy who's been in the league for years, has seen those live bullets before, and just to see him, kind of as trigger shy as he was to throw that ball, I think it just became obvious that if the BC Lions are going to compete against the likes of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers or the Calgary Stampeders, they're going to have to find somebody who's experienced, someone who has that toolkit that can exploit their weapons on offense, because that's what they have. They have an incredibly great defense too. Their special teams is certainly something to be desired still. I think they need to pick up the slack in that area. But at least in this case, I said this, if you can win 2 out of 3 phases, they definitely have that opportunity on defense with Vernon Adams now at quarterback. I think they move back in the direction where they're winning more games than not from an offensive perspective. And I think if you look at around the CFL and the options that were available, this was your best bet. So kudos to BC for doing it, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see what Vernon Adams can do. I know he's excited to be back there. It's funny. It was like when he first started in the CFL, it was BC Lions who had his negotiation rights, and they end up dealing him to Montreal, and kind of the rest is history. So he called it kind of full circle and back home, if you will. He's from that side, at least of the US. So we'll see what happens with them, but I'm excited to see if the BC Lions can get back to where they were, prior to Rourke going down.
Yeah, I mean, the bar was set pretty high, certainly offensively for BC. But we don't even need to worry about BC because they're the odd man out, the odd team out when it comes to Labor Day weekend. The team we're most worried about is the Riders. What are we hearing about the enemy for Sunday's Labor Day Classic? It's been an up and down season for Saskatchewan. They have shown that the defense is legit. The offense has been very hot and cold, but they are coming off one of their better performances of the season. Maybe with a little momentum coming into this game. What are you hearing about the green and white?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Riders have been a bit of a train wreck this year. I mean, if you look at their record, 6-5, that's about how they played. I mean, they had a decent start to the season. Cody Fajardo's been up and down with his play, much as he has been for the last couple seasons, really since 2019. When he was named the West nominee for MOP, but I'm not putting it all on his feet. I mean, his offensive line is pretty atrocious in a lot of ways. He's not getting a lot of time. You mentioned their defense; they have a pretty good defense. They certainly, if you look at the stats, one thing that certainly pops out is that they have the most sacks in the CFL. And I think among the most QB pressures as well. But on the flip side, they allow the most sacks against. So, even in a victory, as you call, maybe a momentum booster against BC, Cody Fajardo got sacked 7 times. I don't know. I'm still not really a believer, in the Roughriders this year. I think the Bombers have a massive opportunity here. We all know how difficult it is to go into that stadium, particularly on Labor Day with the noise and all the environment in general just being a wild one. I'm certainly looking forward to this weekend after, last year's was a little bit of a watered down version with COVID and everything. Didn't have nearly as much as the Winnipeg representation as usual. But this is a great Bombers team, right? So, you have to view them as, probably the favorites going in, and, difficult circumstances or not, they're not taking the bait. They never do, right? We try to ask them about, guys do talk about the rivalry and how important it is to the CFL and to the, particularly to the 2 fan bases on the prairies, not arguably the 2 best fan bases in the CFL. So it is a big game. The whole idea that the season doesn't start till after Labor Day, which is kind of BS, but it is kind of when things ramp up. So the Bombers have a real opportunity here, right? I mean, they're 10-1 obviously, but they're also, they have a chance to really cement first place in a lot of ways, just with the way BC's, trending and Calgary being 6-4. They have a real opportunity to ensure that Saskatchewan doesn't even come close to first place in the West. And that would be kind of a sweet add-on for Winnipeggers to kind of seal their fate in that respect. But yeah, I mean, you don't, in a game that doesn't require any extra hype, there's lots of storylines to look at and to focus on. But all in all, I think it's just going to be, an awesome time to watch a game against, not just the biggest rivalry in the CFL, but among pro sports, I'd argue in a lot of ways too.
Well, I mean, hey, listen, it's a big event for both provinces, and it is the one weekend of the year, as well as the Banjo Bowl, that I think people that don't normally pay attention maybe to the Canadian Football League get in, watch the game, care about it, take sides, even if they don't really have any skin in the game. And certainly from a fan's perspective, for Bomber fans that are making that trip out there, it's always incredibly fun. It's been a bit more fun the last few years with the team being where they are after the trail of tears we always used to have driving home with mind-bending hangovers after tough losses at the old stadium. Speaking of that, maybe nothing was more entertaining in Winnipeg media last year than you and Ted Wyman's excellent adventure via Instagram out to the Labor Day Classic. Bombing was on earlier this week. He's apparently jumping in the car as well this week. Fill us in on the travel plans, the crew, and can we look forward to more fun social media content outside of your more serious role with the Winnipeg Free Press?
Yeah, serious role as a sports reporter. So yeah, absolutely. So it's just to clarify the name, it's Jeff and Ted's Labor Day Adventures. So that was the first take, and so we're definitely going to be doing that this season or this weekend as well. As you mentioned, DB's popping into the car with us. We're heading out Friday morning. I was talking to Ted about it today. You know, he's excited about it. I don't know. It was a lot of fun. Got a lot of messages last year. You know, it's really, for those who didn't get a chance to see it, it's just me kind of picking on Ted all weekend and him being a really good sport. You know, just the banter we have back and forth. It's funny too, because I remember sending it out to him last year before we took off to Regina. It was like the day before. I said, hey, what do you think about doing, like, you know, we have a lot of fun on the road. We have a good rapport, me and him. You know, we're together pretty much all CFL season for the road trips. What do you think about doing this? And, you know, he was a great sport. He said he was going to bring out his guitar, and I thought maybe this is a bad idea. And I, you know, just had a couple conversations with him and said, look, I'm going to handle the creativity. I have the authority over that. You just be yourself. Just do what you're going to do, and everything will work out great. So I'm happy to say that this is going to happen this year.
Ted doesn't realize what a content machine he is, even when he's not trying. I mean,
No, exactly.
We still think, I mean, people still in the chat call him Teddy Drip after some of where he was wearing the hat and some of the outfits he had on before. And
Jason Mraz look, you know, his casual lake look, right? Yeah.
Hey, you know what? But obviously he does a great job covering the Bombers too. And Ted, being a guy like yourself from here, I think really understands that this is more than a game. And I know you guys, as much as you'll be focused on preparations and everything you have to do for your jobs, we'll be getting out, connecting with fans. And I imagine that'll be some of the content as well, not just what's happening between the white lines, between the Bombers and Riders, because this weekend for the Canadian Football League, and certainly for both of these fan bases, is much more than just a 3-hour football game on Sunday afternoon.
Well, absolutely, and I think even mentioned in our stories last year, like, you know, there certainly was. I'm not taking away from anybody who made the trip. There certainly was, you know, some Bomber representation, but just not nearly to the degree as in previous years, for obvious reasons, as I mentioned, COVID being the main one. It just, you know, people weren't as interested in traveling, sitting in stadiums, and, you know, whatever, right? So this year, you know, I'm really looking forward to a return. You know, it doesn't feel like Labor Day weekend in Regina unless there's somebody in a Bombers jersey whizzing in the City Hall fountain. It's just, you know, that's something that happens every year that just wasn't on display last year. So you miss these things, right? You miss seeing some of the crowds. So, you know, I think whether it's is it Wayne's World? Is it Wally's? Like, yes, Wayne's World,
Wayne's
right?
World.
Wayne's World. Yeah, I didn't know if it would play on that. So probably going to stop by that before the game, and, you know, maybe get that in some of the content machine. If you see us out there, feel happy to provide free content. I got a weird feeling about this weekend, actually. Not by any means of our Jeff and Ted's, you know, Labor Day Adventures, which I should mention will have DB on it, I'm sure, to a certain degree, but, you know, we'll ease them in or whatever. We don't want to get off too much off script. Don't want to go full out there. But what I was getting to is I feel like there's a bit of a brewing animosity, right? Because this is like the Bombers are back-to-back champs, so, you know, there's a bunch of Winnipeggers that are going to come into town flexing. You know, they have the art, right? Before it was, you haven't won a Grey Cup, right? You haven't won a Grey Cup. It was, this is the long drought, like, you know, whatever, right? Just counting the years back. And what could you really say as a Bombers fan? Well, now you're marching into the Queen City with back-to-back titles. You're 10-1 this year, you know, so I feel like some of the jaw-jacking will return. And I don't know, Haas, I'm sure you've been to your fair share of Labor Days. Things can go south real quick, and I'm not encouraging that by any means, but might be extra interested in people watching this time around.
Oh, it is going to be phenomenal, and you're exactly right. I mean, I was talking earlier this week about the 2011 Banjo Bowl, and Gary, that was one of the couple years where Gary and I did a couple buses for fans on the show, and it was an absolute riot. But that was when the Bombers were 7-1 and the Riders were 1-7, and you know, because that hadn't happened in a long time. I mean, you talk about the chest pumped out. I mean, there was an element of, well, it certainly proved to be overconfidence going into the game because the Bombers lost that game and then lost the Banjo Bowl back in Winnipeg to go to 7-3.
Right.
Did end up making to the Grey Cup, but I think I had to go to 7 or 8 Labor Day games before I finally saw a win. That was the final win in the old stadium. But you're exactly right. There is going to be a lot of very confident Bomber fans, and for those that have been going for a long time that remember the misery of getting their asses kicked year after year after year.
Right.
It's a complete 180 right now, and I can't wait to see how the Rider fans react to that, knowing that the Bombers all of a sudden are the team to beat. But certainly when it comes to the fan bases, I think the numbers will be up there, and man, I think the fun will be cranked up to a very high level, but it should be just an absolute incredible atmosphere, which it always is, but even maybe more so.
30 degrees out this weekend. It's 30 degrees every day. Like it's like the thick of summer, whereas there's been times where Labor Day weekend has been crap, rain, yada yada. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's cold. It's like Miami Beach there this week. It's going to look nothing like Miami Beach, of course, but it's going to be, it might feel like it.
Oh, man. Well, listen, I'm very jealous that I won't be hanging out with you guys over the course of the weekend, but
you're not making it.
I will be paying. No, I have a previous commitment, a wedding-related previous commitment of some dear friends, and you can tell they're very dear friends because I'm doing the wedding, and I will not be there, but obviously I'll be tuned in, and we'll look forward to doing this again next week back here in Winnipeg at the Banjo Bowl, which is already sold out. I was just speaking with some of the gang from Princess Auto about Banjo Bowl plans, hitting the tailgate beforehand and then going to the game. And as I said, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about the Jets, and people are a little bit bent about expectations for this year and what's happened. It's the exact opposite right now with this team and, what they've done on the field, but maybe even more importantly, what's happened off the field. And we're going to see that at the Banjo Bowl. But this weekend is really what the Canadian Football League is all about. And I just wish there was a way you could package or bottle what you're going to be and what Bomber fans and Rider fans are going to be part of over the course of these next 3 days out in Saskatchewan, and somehow get that to some of these other markets. Because listen, I've done I've done dozens of NFL games. I'm in games around the world. That weekend game, the weekend overall, but the game in Saskatchewan on Labor Day is one of the most special and fun atmospheres you can have as a sports fan. So Bomber fans, do it fun, do it safe, and make sure if you see Jeff, Ted, and Darren out there to give them your best, and feel free to get them in. Hey, just quickly before we go, I did want to ask you about the Stamps, because the Stamps I still think are a very dangerous team. I know they lost 4 games in the season. Is this Jake Mayer's job, do you think? Pardon me?
100%. 3 of them against the Bombers, right? They're 6-4, but they've lost 3 against the Bombers, and the other one was against BC. So it's not like, it's not like they're losing to the teams they're supposed to be losing to, or supposed to be beating. They're beating those teams. You could argue that they're losing to the teams they're supposed to be losing to, and that being the back-to-back Grey Cup champs and the other team that had Nathan Rourke for a spell. So, they're a really good team. They're a really well-coached team. They're a very good disciplined team. They're a 3-phase team, right? Like, you look at BC Lions, and yeah, they were doing awesome, but they're special teams is not up to snuff. Whereas I'd say that the Calgary Stampeders and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers take special teams as serious, if not more serious, than anybody else in the league. And so they love to play complementary football. Of course, every team loves to play or wants to play complementary football. You just see it a lot more in those 2 areas. You asked the question, is this Jake Mayers? I said, run. I said, absolutely. This guy he's composed. He's chill. Get this. Someone described him more chill than Drew Tate. So I don't know if you know Drew Tate in this league. I mean, you don't have to, he's probably under a tree somewhere in BC enjoying himself right now, looking at the clouds and everything, right? Like, that's how chill that guy is. So to be described comparable as chill in that level and have the execution that he has, that tells me this guy doesn't get phased. He certainly has a skill set. He has the ability to read defenses, go through his reads, process. what's available and deliver. I mean, he was 16 for 17 in the first half against the Bombers last week. He was 16 for 16 in the first half against the Bombers, and what was his second or third start in the CFL last season early on. So this guy's the real deal. Bo Levi Mitchell has done a lot of great things for the league. I mean, it's certainly great to have Bo Levi Mitchell as your backup. He certainly played well earlier in the season when he seemed to be more healthy, but with the wear and tear on his body and whatnot, to have a guy like Jake Mayer, who's 25 years old, who, is comfortable in the offense, who wants to be there, all those things, certainly a great plan what was a backup plan, but certainly at this point in time, I mean, is the guy moving forward. And I think he makes the Stampeders a more dangerous team. So, all that considered, I mean, it's certainly Jake Mayer's time, and it'll be exciting to see what he can do. Maybe he can be the next new great quarterback. Because if you look around the league beyond Nathan Rourke, that it's an area of the CFL right now that's struggling. There's not a lot of high-end quarterback talent, so if Jake Mayer can kind of tip the scales in that other direction, great. But I know Bomber fans aren't going to want to see him do that against the Bombers, but it's good for the league to have a player like him up and coming.
Yeah, I think the only question about the Battle of Alberta is whether the Elks can somehow cover the 12.5-point spread. And I was thinking that they might be able to, and then I realized Kenny Lawler's probably not in the lineup, and
definitely not in the lineup.
Any thoughts on Toronto Hamilton? Argos sort of owned this series so far. I gotta think that Hamilton has a better performance at home. They've been the authors of their own demise. I mean, turnovers, especially because of Dane Evans, has really sunk them so far this season. And they're a very slight favorite, 1 point at home. But I mean, really, this game is essentially a pick 'em.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's been, if you look at it, if I'm correct, it's been the home team, right? So they've been able to defend their barn. So, you mentioned Dane Evans. I mean, you could argue every game after week one was a response game for him, because it's just been, a lot of tough sledding for him. I think early on in the season, a lot of his turnovers, interceptions in particular, where you could classify them as unlucky. More often than not, he was hitting numbers. But receivers were bouncing off them and into the arms of the opponent, and it was picked and whatever, right? It just seems to happen at the worst possible times too. If you look at Hamilton, their MO has been to build up a first half lead and then just fall apart in the stretch. Specifically to Dane Evans, I mean, he had arguably his worst game in what's been a tough season for him this past week against Toronto. I mean, a lot of those turnovers, one was a pick six. It was just this guy exuded confidence in 2019 and again in 2021 as Hamilton marched their way to the Grey Cup in each one of those years. And then this year he just seems defeated. It just seems like he's clinging on for dear life in a lot of ways. I mean, he had some pretty choice words post game. He talked about how he kept screwing over his team, and he needs to own that, which I'm sure he did. But now it comes down to, well, what's he going to be? What's he going to do this week? Because the reality is if Matthew Schultz isn't injured, isn't out for 4 to 6 weeks, there's no way Dane Evans is starting. So this is an opportunity to get his job back, to solidify his position there. As we all know, they chose Dane Evans over Jeremiah Masoli leading into this season, believing that he was the future of their team. So he just needs to take this confidence, or he needs to take these next few games as Matthew Schultz works to get back in the lineup and own it. Be the player that he is. Even when he was throwing interceptions or whatever, he was still racking up the yards. He was still moving the ball downfield to a certain level. It's just about that consistency, that precision, and being averse to turnovers. As we all know, those are killers. You can throw for 400 yards, but if you're getting picked off 2-3 times a game, more often than not, you're losing that one. So big game for Dane Evans. Big game for the Hamilton Tiger Cats that need to claw their way back into things, because the East, now that we're heading into week 13 here, the East is up for grabs. So let's figure out what will happen and see what goes from there.
Hammer, have a hell of a weekend. I'll miss you guys. Have one for me. Say hi to Ted and Darren, and I'll be looking forward, of course, to all your reporting in the Winnipeg Free Press and a full report both on and off the field next week on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, you can find me at Jeff K. Hamilton on Instagram. You can watch me in TED. I have an open profile, so you don't even have to go as far as follow me. You could just creep me from a distance. So you're going to be a fun weekend, Huss. We're going to miss you. I'll have one or two for you. That's probably my cap this weekend. You know, getting to bed early and getting to the gym even earlier is the goal for this weekend. So looking forward to that for sure.
Goals. Good luck with those goals. We'll see how that works out. Thanks so much. There's Jeff Hamilton, of course, Winnipeg Free Press for all the latest on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Jeff will have boots on the ground, along with Ted Wyman and Darren Bombing from the Sun and Bonfire Sports, respectively, for the biggest game of the year in the regular season, the Labor Day Classic. And I'll put the Banjo Bowl right up there. We'll have lots on the Banjo Bowl next week coming out of the first end of this home and home. And don't forget, this is the first of 3 games this month against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, with the Riders coming back to Winnipeg on the 30th as well. All right, hey, listen, to finish up the show, let's take a quick look and see where the lines are right now for these CFL games for our friends over at Coolbet. We've got a 4.5 point number right now for the Ottawa Red Blacks and the Montreal Alouettes. Montreal 4.5 point favorites against Ottawa. That one opened at 5. Other than that, not really any movement. Bombers are still holding strong as 3.5 point favorites on the road in the Labor Day game, a Labor Day Classic against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I guess the games that are actually on Labor Day, the doubleheader on Monday, Argos 1 point dogs in Hamilton, Ticats 1 point favorites. For all intents and purposes, a pick 'em right now. And then the Elks without Kenny Lawler now 12.5 point underdogs going up against the Calgary Stampeders. We will once again have Jake Mayer at the helm. As far as tonight in the majors, no Blue Jays game tonight. They finished up that series yesterday with the Cubs. A couple afternoon games on getaway day, Royals and White Sox, Mariners and Tigers. But tonight, if you are looking to maybe throw a little sprinkle on something, a few games. Dodgers Mets will be a hell of a game, probably the game of the night. Dodgers a road favorite at Shea, or a City Field, I should say, -133, and the Mets +118. And a huge selection of tennis to bet on as well, if you'd like it. Full slate of games as week 1 of the U.S. Open continues. And again, I touched on this a little earlier, but what a moment last night with Serena Williams knocking out the number 2 seed, not ready to retire or evolve, as she put it, just yet. She's still there, along with Canada's Bianca Andreescu, who's moved on to the 3rd round of the program. Well, listen, this has been a great fun show today at Princess Auto. Cannot thank the gang here enough for the incredible hospitality and obviously the time of Reid Carruthers, Jason Gunnlaugsson, Jennifer Jones, MacKenzie Zacharias. Had a great little staff event here in a few minutes ago while we were doing the last hour of the program, but we really appreciate their support and look forward to keeping tabs on our official teams of WST throughout the season, as they both represent Manitoba on the World Curling Tour, and hopefully to big and great things when it comes to the Brier and, of course, the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. Folks, do not forget, tonight, if you haven't already counted yourself in, I think there still is a bit of room to squeeze in for our sports trivia night at Little Brown Jug. It's going to get going at 7 p.m., so come a little bit early. Of course, we'll have a few beers tonight. If you want to pick up any LBJ merch as well, work on seeing who of our WST crew is ready to tackle the questions that I've been working on for the last week or so. Really looking forward to it. And as I said, we might even have an appearance later on from Michael Remus, depending on when he gets here. But speaking of Remus, he is back tomorrow. And just before we go, cannot thank Alex Allard enough for his incredible help over the course of the last week. Listen, we kind of started this and we've learned a lot over the last couple years, but that was always because Michael Remus was on the job. So to have Remo be able to get away for a few days has been huge for him, certainly huge for us. And Alex has been the guy. Here you are, just a quick collage of Michael's trip. We'll ask him about it tomorrow. On the cover of NHL 23, along with Zegras and Nurse, was a big way to start it off. And then dolphins, giraffes, the Great Wall of China, a quick pit stop in Paris. I mean, the guy really has been everywhere, and tomorrow he will return to WST. So once again, Alex, thank you so much. We'll look forward to having you back again behind the scenes and on the show in the future when we need. And of course, you can check out Alice's work behind the scenes with the Wally and Methought show and what Frank's doing over at Daily Faceoff. But grinders like us going all through the summer. And listen, we appreciate Alex taking some of his summer to help us as well. All right, that is going to do it for us, gang. I'm going to get everything tied up here and then get down to Little Brown Jug and get ready for our event tonight, 7 p.m. We'll start the questions. So hope to see you there. And we definitely hope to see you tomorrow on a big Friday show heading into Labor Day long weekend. We'll break down all the games with John Hodge. We'll also have Lee Hacksaw Hamilton with his NFL notebook. And we'll hear all about Remus's travels. As you said, he's been quite a few places over the past week. All right, that's going to do it for me, live from Princess Auto. Big thanks again to the folks here for the incredible hospitality. And once again, huge thanks to Alex Allard for his great help the last week. Hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that thumbs up button on the way out. Hope to see you tonight, but if not, we'll see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central Time, YouTube, live on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.